This is the coolest wagon you've never heard of. Welcome back to the Plays with Cars YouTube channel and the Enthusiast review of what is really the modern sleeper turbo wagon. Yes, I said turbo. This right here is a Ford Flex. It's not an SUV, it's not a truck, it is a station wagon. It's based on the front-wheel drive / all-wheel drive Taurus platform that can trace its lineage all the way back to the large Volvos of yore. It is sold and marketed as a wagon, good old-fashioned American station wagon, and this thing is cool. So cool, in fact, that Doug DeMuro doesn't even know what the heck it is, and you'll never see one of these listed on Cars and Bids. So why should you as an enthusiast know about this? Well, because it's really cool, and you sure don't want to pull up next to one at a stoplight because it might just clean your clock. As a performance enthusiast, you obviously want to start up front with the motor, so let's start with the horsepower. This is the Ford 3.5 liter V6 twin turbo EcoBoost motor. Loosely based on what's in the Ford GT supercar, yes, but more realistically, this is the motor that came in the Ford Explorers, the Police Interceptor versions, as well as the Taurus SHO, and a couple other special models. I know there was a few Lincolns made with it and whatnot, and you could get it in the Flex. They are slightly different than the versions you would get that are longitudinal based, like in the F-150 and stuff. Those have a little bit different turbos on them, a little bit different intakes. They have different issues than these transverse versions. So see here underneath the engine cover, it is an all-aluminum motor, dual overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder. The turbo version here has an aluminum intake on it, single throttle body, single air inlet on these that separates out into the two turbos. This one has obviously an aftermarket air intake on it. This particular one happens to be the Roush cold air intake, but factory is just a big old black box here. You go into this tube here, it splits into two. This one goes to the back turbo, this one to the front turbo, which is the wee little guy right there. You can see the oil line going to it and the heat shield on the turbine housing. They're kind of small, but they are pretty modern turbo design. They tend to make pretty good boost, pretty good power. This is a direct injected engine. In fact, underneath this cover right here is your mechanical fuel pump. This sucker is really loud. If you take this thing off, you can really hear it in the car. So you definitely want to make sure that your Flex has one of those. Now, this one also has another mod, and that is a tune, a custom tune actually from Unleashed Performance. Part of that tune is changing the thermostat out for a colder one, some colder spark plugs, and a 2-bar map sensor. It's pretty easy to tune these, work on them. There's all sorts of upgrades. You can upgrade the turbochargers, you can upgrade the intercooler, you can upgrade all the charge pipes. Really, you can make a lot more power than stock. Stock, these are 355 horsepower in the first gen Flex, which goes through this model year, the 2012. The 13s and newer are 365, although really the only difference I can find is in tuning. So that 355 or 365 horses is connected to a full-time Haldex all-wheel drive system. Now this is similar to the all-wheel drive system in the Volvo V70R, for example, the Volvo XC90, even modern cars like the Audi RS3, although slightly different, but kind of same concept. The hard part is it is very front-wheel drive biased. You're never going to get all of your torque to the back. You're never going to get even 50% of your torque to the back. It is a whole lot more in the front. It uses an angle gear instead of a real transfer case, and so there's a big reduction in power that goes to the back, which means this doesn't really handle like an all-wheel drive car or drive like an all-wheel drive car. It's more like a front-wheel drive one. And in fact, in low traction situations, you'll find that the rear kind of really isn't doing much of anything at all, and the angle gear on these is notorious for going bad because they're a huge pain in the butt to change the oil in. You actually have to drop the midsection of part of the exhaust system just to get to it, and then suck out a tiny little bit of oil and put a tiny little bit of oil back in. So it tends to never get done, performed, and then the angle gear inevitably fails because no one's ever changed the oil in it. So if you get one of these, make sure you change the oil in the angle gear and make sure that it continues to be changed about every 30,000 miles to prevent any of that from happening. Now you will see on the brakes it does have 2-piston aluminum calipers. They are sliding calipers. They're not very good brakes. As far as track work is concerned, they're sort of powerful enough to stop it, but not really. If you're into any kind of track driving or performance driving, you're definitely going to want to upgrade. Out back, you're treated to a true dual exhaust system. Some Flexes had a dual tip out one side. Those are your naturally aspirated ones. The ones that come with the factory tow hitch package like this have the tip on either side. It actually has quite a nice growl to it. I'll do a cold start for you. Now, one thing about this that is maybe not the most performance are these shift paddles. You can see them here on the steering wheel with a pull and a push. They're not marked and they are not intuitive at all. Both paddles are the same, which is wrong. Most cars that have paddles, one side operates the opposite of the other side. So, for example, pulling up on the right side would shift up, and you would have to push forward on the left side to shift up. Pulling on the left side would downshift. Not so in this thing. In this one, you push on both for shift up, pull on both for shift up and push for shift down, except it doesn't work. It goes into automatic mode and it shifts whenever it wants anyway. And even if you short shift, say at like 5250 RPMs, it will double shift, and so it'll shift itself and it'll shift with your commanded shift. So these things are really completely useless. Ford realized how bad these were and changed them in the facelifted Flex, and they do work opposite, and they do work a lot better, but they still have kind of a mind of their own. They still aren't, it's not a Tiptronic at all, so don't expect it to be. Really the best thing to do with this is put it down in the M mode, but then just let it shift itself and go from there. It'll put in like a better shift strategy, but it's still not going to do what you want it to do. The other bad thing about the steering wheel on the early ones like this is these buttons get confused. And I don't mean like you confuse them, like they confuse themselves. Like you will hit the volume up button, and it will very clearly be the volume up button. You're not touching this button at all, and it will still change the station as well. It will like double tap. Same thing over here on the cruise control. It's actually really easy to trip the cruise control or make it go higher or lower or all sorts of crazy things, even when you're not even really touching it, because these are so bad. Again, something Ford realized, they changed the steering wheel right away for that facelift in 2013. So if having wonky steering wheel controls is not your thing, I would stay away from the early ones. Now, I don't want to give the impression that it's all bad in here, because it's not. The seats really are quite comfortable. You can get them in a number of different fabrics and contours and colors and patterns. This particular one, being the titanium, has this kind of microfiber insert that's perforated with the leather outers in the charcoal color with the light gray. And then the door trim pieces here are kind of like this fakey carbon fiber stuff that actually looks all right. You can get these with wood inserts, aluminum inserts. You can get them in two-tone interiors that have a lighter colored bottom. I've seen light grays, I've seen tans and beiges. They all look pretty good. And you know what? They hold up pretty decently over time. You will get some random rattles and squeaks and kind of some buttons that poke in and stuff. But on the all in all, as far as, you know, a family wagon is concerned, it's really a decent enough interior. And there are some nice things like the automatic dimming mirror, nice big visors here with the built-in home link and all that. It's pretty decent. It's no luxury car. It's no performance car. You're not getting, real carbon fiber or anything. But, as far as the family car is concerned, it's good enough. Now, we've talked a little bit about performance and a little bit about the driving position, but what makes this an actual cool wagon, other than, obviously, the styling's pretty neat on these? Inside here, you have two different options of seating. You can either get a full bench with 3 seats across, or like this one, a pair of captain's chairs with a center console that happens to be a refrigerator. Yes, really, this is refrigerated. In fact, not only is it refrigerated, you can actually tell it to freeze instead of cool and freeze things in there. Makes it nice for long road trips to hold the drink in there, or a couple of drinks for everybody. Now they do have this funkiness where it opens up backwards to make it really hard for the driver's occupants to get to, and it also doesn't hold a six-pack, obviously, due to the weird size here. It's very much intended to be something for the passengers here in the second and third row, and not really accessible to the drivers. Clearly there's some liability issues with that. Now, this particular one also happens to be a loaded out titanium version with literally all the options, including this Trek factory DVD player in the headrest. There are two of them, and they actually come with headsets that we can get out of the normal console here. And these headsets are wireless and do work quite nicely. We'll also play the sound from this through the factory speaker system. Kind of trickily, it plays the sound through the back speakers louder than through the front speakers. So you can kind of carry on a conversation in the front, and the people in the back can listen to this. It makes it good for road trips. The other neat thing about the fully loaded versions is, check this out. The driver's got a sunroof. The second row has twin sunroofs. It's almost like an old school T-bar muscle car. The third row, a whole other sunroof. All of them have their own pull-in shade panels, which is really nice. Everybody's got their own AC vents. It's a really nice place to spend some time. Now, again, being the fully loaded out version, it's got cool things like automatic folding seats so that you can get into the third row here. And as I step in the back here, you can pop that up. And quite a decent bit of space given everything. You got your little storage consoles and whatnot back here. And again, having this right above your head is really nice. I'm a pretty big guy, 5'10", couple hundred pounds, and I fit back here all right. There's enough headroom, there's enough shoulder room, there's enough hip room and stuff. Leg room can be a little tight, but the second row does move forward quite a bit. All in all, you could put 6 adults in this and road trip just fine. Now, one of the real party tricks to this thing as far as the wagoness is concerned is the rear hatch. You can get them fully powered like this, and combined with that third row that is also fully powered, you can do some cool things. For example, and this is not sped up, this is full speed. They're a little slow, but not the slowest. Tailgate mode. Yeah, that's right. You can flip the seats backwards like this. Have yourself a hop on up in here. And watch the game. Again, not a bad place to be. I'm a pretty big guy, and the way you sit, your head, kind of ends up in the sunroof area again, so there's lots of headroom. Although getting out, you have to duck or you do kind of bang your noggin. The other thing is, having these underneath your bottom is not the most comfortable, but folding them out is even worse, because now you're like straddling this thing, and it makes it really difficult to move around or get out. So maybe not the most well thought out tailgate seating, but they do tailgate. Now, from up here, you can see that the panoramic roof is really just one ginormous piece of glass for the second and third rows, and all the centerpieces are really kind of support structure. It doesn't move at all. It is fixed in place, so you don't really have to worry about leaks or anything like that. The front moonroof is a standard moonroof. It does fold all the way into the roof or kind of go up over, and you do have to watch to make sure that the drains stay clear. The other thing the seats do is actually completely stow, and that makes for a nice flat load floor for carrying cargo back here. You can see when they fold out, they actually fold in half, and you get this completely flat floor that goes side to side and all the way. So it makes it pretty decent. You can also fold the second row and kind of get them flattish. The problem is when you've got the second row captains, you still have the console there that is higher and is a hump. So if you like carrying lots of cargo, I would suggest the second row full bench version, which does fold completely flat so that you can go flat all the way forward instead of having that piece there to kind of contend with. The hatch at least closes reasonably fast. There are some cool options available. For example, powered pedals here. On the door there's a button to move the pedals, and you can see the whole pedal cluster actually moves. Makes it nice to adjust for different drivers. You can also have memory settings for the seats. Now, a cool feature in these are these LEDs that you can see here in the cup holders and also kind of down at my feet. And you can actually change the colors in those with this button here in the center console. Hit it, you can see magenta, off, white, orange, red, teal, yellow, and blue. Another option is an automatic parking system. I've never really used this, so I have no idea how good it is, but it does exist. And moving inside, you'll see a nice gauge cluster here in the dashboard. The pre-facelift models like this 2012 happen to have analog style gauges with your tach and your speedo and just kind of a little LCD readout. The 13 and newers, they have a digital gauge package with a screen all the way across here with lots of configurations on it, although it can be kind of buggy, so something to look out for. If you're not much for electronics and electronic bugs, look for the older generation. If you like the features and you like having like your navigation map up here and things like that, then head out for the newer one. In the center stack here, we have a full function touch screen Ford Sync system. It actually works quite well. It has a navigation on it, while Ancient actually seems to work pretty well. You can continually get these updated at your Ford dealer, which is pretty nice. They also have dual zone climate control, including a separate control for the rear. So lots of functionality in here. You can kind of find all sorts of videos on the Sync system. Another difference between the early and late ones, early Flexes have seat heaters with just 2 levels of onness. Level 2 will literally burn you alive. It is really, really, really hot. Level 1 is nice. The newer Flex, the facelifted versions, they have a 3-level one, which is a little nicer to have that range, except for the top level doesn't get quite as hot. The heated and cooled seats are even less hot. You almost don't feel them at all. So if a seat heater is really important to you, either get the heated only version or get the early model like this. Really, the big thing is it's quiet, it's comfortable, it'll haul 6 to 7 people also comfortably in pretty good style. I mean, honestly, the Flex comes in amazing colors. They're really easy to pick out on the road because of their cool styling and nice colors. There's a really cool teal, there's a lot of nice blues, there's some really good reds, pearlescent whites, black obviously like this one, but you know, they got a lot of style. You can also get them two-toned with the roof that is in a different color. I've seen roofs in black and white and also silver. You hear me referencing the facelift model a lot. This is actually my second Flex. The first one I had was the facelifted one, and it was the, I want to say it's called the Platinum trim in that particular version, and it had the silver roof on it, and it was blue. And I liked it a lot, except for it had a lot of electrical bugs, and I don't know, I'm not going to say that it's all Flexes or that whole generation. It very well may have been that particular car. I didn't get it from a reputable place. It came from a skeezy used car dealer on 82nd in Portland, and it had some questionable history. So it very well could have been that particular car. But I've also heard reports of other people having not the greatest luck with the electronics in the facelifted Flex. So just something to be aware of. The more loaded out they are, the more electronics they have, the newer the version, kind of the more issues you can have. So that being said, when I replaced that Flex, which actually, of all things, got caught in a flash flood, which screwed up the electrics, when I replaced that Flex, I purposely went and got the pre-facelift model because I prefer the analog gauges. I didn't use half the electronic stuff anyway, didn't really like it. And this one had everything I wanted in the way that I wanted it. And this one also being the titanium, I think looks really, really cool. The all blacked out with the dark accents everywhere on it is a really cool look. So now you've probably made it this far in the video and you're wondering to yourself, come on, what's a performance enthusiast want to do with this thing? It's just a big Ford station wagon that's got a couple of horsepowers. Well, you got a lot of horsepowers. One thing to be aware of is the traction control system on this. While you can turn it off, the stability control is never defeatable. So you can't do snow donuts in it, for example. See, it cuts throttle. Anytime it feels a chassis slip, like going around a corner like that, the stability control will check in, turn on, and it will cut throttle. So it doesn't engage brakes. It's not engaging the ABS. You can't pull the ABS sensor or anything like that. It's not the traction control. It's the stability control, the ESC, the electronic stability control, and it does it by cutting throttle. So you can keep your foot mashed to the floor. It's not going to change a darn thing. It's going to cut the throttle on it. So it's really not a good cornering car. It's not going to hustle you around a corner. It's not going to do a donut or anything like that. But if you get it in a straight line and you've got traction, it absolutely hauls the mail. And I mean that. In fact, I kind of feel like where the Flex really shines and why you as an enthusiast should know about them is on the highway. This is really where they're meant to be. One, for just the road tripness of it. Like I said, with all these luxury features, all this room, all this space, they're really nice inside for that kind of thing. They're great for long highway cruises. That's also where they make all their power. This thing is decently quick from a stop. Decently quick. It is not super fast though. However, once you're already rolling, if you're already doing 40, 50, 60 miles an hour and you whomp on it, that's where this thing's going to embarrass a lot of cars. And that was before this one was tuned. This particular one with the tune in the intake, it just goes. So what I'm on about is when this thing's already moving, you're going down the road, and something cool pulls up next to you and starts messing with you, or you want to mess with them, just lay into it. Downshifts at full boost, and it just powers all the way through triple digits.